Long before maps, borders, or the name Minnesota, this land was already old. Beneath its lakes lie bedrock billions of years in age. Its rivers trace ancient fault lines. Its cliffs are the bones of volcanoes, and its forests still remember fire. This is not the Midwest you think you know. It's older, colder, and carved in silence. Minnesota is known for its lakes, but the real story is the stone beneath them. Formed from some of the oldest exposed rock on Earth, this landscape was later buried, scraped, and sculpted by glaciers that advanced and retreated over eons. What they left behind is a terrain of fractured bedrock, deep ridges, kettle lakes, and scattered moraines, a geography both ancient and newly carved. In the north, volcanic and metamorphic stone rise through pine forests. In the east, Lake Superior carves into billion-year-old cliffs. The center of the state is a patchwork of glacial hills, forests, and bogs, while the south reveals limestone caves and unglaciated bluffs. This is not a flatland. It's a layered record. And the deeper you look, the more you realize. Minnesota is not just the land of 10,000 lakes. It's a land of 1,000 hidden worlds. In the farthest reaches of northern Minnesota, bordering Canada and stretching across 1 million acres, lies one of the most remote and untouched landscapes in the United States. The Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness. Here, the land is so fractured, so flooded, and so quiet, it feels like a map made by water itself. This region sits atop the ancient Canadian Shield, where 2.7 billion-year-old bedrock has been carved by glaciers into a labyrinth of lakes, islands, and channels. Over 1,000 lakes are connected by narrow waterways and portage trails, creating a vast network where the only way forward is by paddle. The terrain is a blend of boreal forest, granite ridges, and glacial scars, where loons call across still waters, moose wade through the reeds, and northern lights ripple over the horizon. Fires and ice have shaped it for eons. Lightning-scorched trees stand over mirror-calm bays, and smooth rock islands rise like ancient backs from the water. There are no roads here, no noise but the wind, and no separation between sky, stone, and reflection. The Boundary Waters are not a destination. They're a silence you have to travel into, one lake, one breath, one paddle at a time. Along Minnesota's rugged north shore, where the land meets the immensity of Lake Superior, lies Tetag State Park. a dramatic collision of ancient volcanic cliffs, inland waterfalls, and forested ridgelines that overlook the largest freshwater lake on Earth. This region was shaped by massive lava flows over 1 billion years ago, part of the mid-continent rift that split the North American continent down its center. Today, that volcanic legacy remains in the form of dark basalt cliffs, shattered shorelines, and high rock spires like Shovel Point and Palisade Head. Within the park, the Baptism River plunges over high falls, Minnesota's highest waterfall entirely within the state, and flows through deep, pine-lined canyons before meeting the cold, steel-blue waters of Lake Superior. The terrain feels both raw and sculpted. Towering stone, crashing water, and trails that rise and fall like waves frozen in rock. Bald eagles drift above the cliffs, and the sound of the lake merges with wind in the trees to create something ancient, immersive, and unforgettably wild. Tetag doesn't just meet the lake. It stands above it, carved by fire and finished by ice. In the forested wilds of Judge C.R. Magny State Park, the Brule River splits, and something strange happens. One branch cascades down a waterfall. The other vanishes completely into a deep, circular hole carved into ancient volcanic rock. This is the Devil's Kettle, a mystery that has fascinated geologists and travelers for decades. Set amid billion-year-old rhyolite rock along Minnesota's north shore, this formation was shaped by glacial melt and river erosion over thousands of years. But it's the kettle itself, a bottomless-looking plunge into solid stone that captures imaginations. For years, no one knew where the water went. Dyes, ping-pong balls, and even GPS trackers failed to reappear downstream. Only recently did scientists confirm that the lost water rejoins the Brule via an underground channel. Still, standing at the edge of the falls, watching half a river disappear into the earth, feels like witnessing a magic trick performed by nature itself. The surrounding trail leads through boreal forest, steep gorges, and quiet overlooks. A perfect blend of geological puzzle and untamed beauty. At Devil's Kettle, the earth doesn't explain itself. It just reminds you that some answers lie in silence. Towering more than 300 feet above Lake Superior, the ancient volcanic cliffs of Palisade Head and Shovel Point form one of the most dramatic shorelines in the Midwest. Their sheer rock faces, made of rhyolite and basalt, were created over 1 billion years ago by the mid-continent rift, when molten lava poured through the Earth's crust and hardened into these bold formations. Palisade Head rises steep and jagged, offering views that stretch across the lake like an inland ocean. Just down the coast, Shovel Point juts out like a blade of stone, layered in rusty red and purple. These cliffs are favorites for climbers and hawks alike, both rising, both watching. Waves crash at their base, wind carves at their edge. And the light here, soft at sunrise, golden at dusk, makes these ancient sentinels feel timeless. They don't just guard the lake, they frame it. Perched on a rugged cliff 130 feet above Lake Superior, the Split Rock Lighthouse stands not just as a beacon, but as a symbol of the geology that defines Minnesota's North Shore. Built in 1910 after a series of deadly shipwrecks, it rises from a foundation of solid basalt, formed by ancient lava flows that shaped the shoreline over 1 billion years ago. The surrounding coast is jagged and dark. Columns of basalt stacked like steps, twisted by time and frost. Waves crash against rocky coves, tide pools collect between fractures, and black sand beaches hint at volcanic beginnings. It's a place where human history clings to stone, a lighthouse framed by trees and mist, holding steady above the inland sea. The views stretch wide, but it's the ground beneath you, 1 billion years of hardened fire, that gives the place its power. Here, light doesn't just shine across the lake. It reflects from stone, from spray, and from the ancient calm that underlies this wild shore. Deep in the forests of north-central Minnesota, surrounded by glacial hills and ancient pines, lies a quiet, narrow stream flowing out of a small, clear lake. This is Lake Atasca, and from its northern shore begins the mighty Mississippi River, a journey of over 2,300 miles to the Gulf of Mexico. The region is geologically subtle, but rich. Formed by retreating glaciers, it's a mosaic of kettle lakes, sandy ridges, and till plains, with soils shaped by ice and time. Towering above them are groves of old-growth red and white pine, some of the oldest in Minnesota. Sentinels that have stood since before statehood. Visitors can walk across the headwaters on stepping stones, where the river is just a few feet wide and inches deep. But even in its infancy, the Mississippi carves a channel through the past. a path born from melting glaciers, shaped by erosion and watched over by forest. Atasca isn't just the start of a river. It's the place where geology, ecology, and American mythology converge in a quiet breath of water among the trees. Spread across more than 660,000 acres in north-central Minnesota, the Chippewa National Forest is a vast, watery wilderness shaped by glaciers and guarded by trees. It's a landscape of mirror lakes, mossy bogs, peat-filled wetlands, and dense coniferous forests, one of the quietest, most ecologically rich corners of the state. Beneath the surface, this land was sculpted by the last ice age. A terrain of glacial till, kettle depressions, and outwash plains. Thousands of lakes fill low pockets left behind by retreating ice, while black spruce and tamarack-lined bogs that have existed untouched for thousands of years. This forest is home to more than 150 nesting bald eagle pairs, along with wolves, moose, loons, and orchids that bloom in secret wetlands. In places like the Lost 40, ancient trees, some over 300 years old, still stand because they were mistakenly left off early logging maps. Here, water and wood blur. Trails drift into silence. And the land doesn't just preserve nature, it preserves time. In west-central Minnesota, far from cliffs and shorelines, the land rolls in soft, rhythmic swells. These aren't just hills, they're glacial moraines, created over 10,000 years ago when the last ice sheets retreated. And at Glacial Lake State Park, the terrain itself becomes a museum of frozen time. This region marks the edge of the Des Moines lobe, where glaciers paused and melted, leaving behind ridges, kettles, and shallow lakes. The result is a landscape of grassy knolls, prairie potholes, and mirror-like waters tucked between ancient rises of gravel and clay. Today, wildflowers bloom across restored tallgrass prairie. Bison once roamed here, and the sky stretches wide above Signalness Lake, which reflects both stars and storm clouds with equal clarity. There are no dramatic peaks or roaring waterfalls here. Just a landscape sculpted in silence, where ice once ruled, and the earth still holds the memory of its retreat. Just outside St. Cloud, where the prairie flattens and the woods thin, ancient stone lies exposed to the sky. This is Quarry Park and Nature Preserve, a patchwork of abandoned granite quarries, shimmering swimming holes, and rock walls that reveal 1 billion years of buried time. The granite here is part of the St. Cloud Pluton, an intrusion of molten rock that solidified deep underground more than 1.7 billion years ago. Later uplift and erosion brought it to the surface, where it was quarried for buildings, bridges, and monuments across the country. Today, the site is reclaimed by nature. Deep quarry pools reflect surrounding pines and exposed walls, while wildflowers and grasses grow in fractured ledges where machines once roared. Trails pass by still ponds, rock outcrops, and echoing canyons of polished stone. Here, the Earth's foundation is visible. And while nature has returned, the marks of both time and industry remain etched in stone, silent, weighty, and unforgettable. Beneath the wooded ridges of southern Minnesota lies a world of stone and shadow. Mystery Cave, the state's longest cave system, stretching over 13 miles of underground passages. It's part of Forestville State Park, where geology disappears below the surface and reemerges as wonder. This region lies within the driftless area, untouched by the last glaciers. Instead of being flattened, the land here was carved by rivers into bluffs, valleys, and sinkholes, ideal conditions for the formation of caves. Mystery Cave winds through layers of limestone and dolomite, shaped by dissolving groundwater over thousands of years. Inside, the air cools, the light dims, and the walls ripple with flowstones, stalactites, and crystal-lined pools. Blue Lake, a perfectly still underground water chamber, reflects ceilings like a hidden sky. This is geology in negative space, a landscape sculpted not by what's added, but by what's removed. Above ground, forests flourish. Below, a hollowed world hums in silence. Overlooking the Mississippi River in southeastern Minnesota, Great River Bluff State Park offers views that stretch across centuries. This isn't just a high point, it's a window into the driftless area, where the land escaped the scouring of glaciers and instead was carved by time. Here, ancient sedimentary layers, limestone, dolomite, and shale, form steep bluffs rising hundreds of feet above the river. These cliffs were shaped by relentless erosion, not ice, revealing stacked layers of rock laid down by prehistoric seas and now sculpted by rain and gravity. From the overlooks, the Mississippi winds through the valley below, braided with sandbars, wetlands, and eagle nests. In autumn, the forested slopes glow in waves of red, orange, and gold, while fog often drifts like a river above the real one. This is not the Mississippi of barges and cities. It's the river's wilder memory, seen from cliffs that have stood still as the water below never has. In In the deeply incised blufflands of southeastern Minnesota lies Whitewater State Park, a rugged pocket of cliffs, springs, and carved valleys that looks nothing like the rest of the Midwest. Here, the Whitewater River winds through limestone walls and steep forested slopes, where floods, not glaciers, shape the land. Part of the unglaciated driftless area, this region was spared the grinding of the last ice age, meaning its topography comes from pure erosion. Flash floods and persistent runoff have sculpted deep ravines and exposed ancient layers of sedimentary rock. As you descend the trails, you descend through time itself. Clear springs bubble from the rock, caves hide along the hillsides, and bald eagles watch from white pines high on the bluffs. Below, the water moves quickly, cutting through narrow valleys still prone to sudden transformation. In Whitewater, beauty is carved from absence, a wildness left behind by what never came, and shaped forever by what stayed behind: time, water, and the soft power of loss. Rising suddenly from the flat prairie of southwestern Minnesota, the cliffs of Blue Mound State Park glow pink in the sunlight. These ancient ridges are made of Sioux quartzite, one of the oldest rock formations in the state, over 1.6 billion years old. And they tell a story few expect to hear on open grassland. Despite the name, the cliffs aren't blue. They take on hues of rose and deep red, colored by iron oxide, and stretch in a long, narrow bluff nearly 100 feet high. Native bison once roamed these lands, and today, a protected herd still grazes the tall grass prairie below. The quartzite here is extremely hard, once used by indigenous peoples for tools. Its vertical fractures and stacked appearance look almost like man-made walls. But this fortress is natural, a geological monument standing above a sea of grass. When sunset hits the stone, the cliffs burn with color. And in that light, the silence of the prairie becomes something sacred. In the quiet southwest corner of Minnesota, water trickles over low cliffs and winds through prairie grass. Beneath your feet lies a scarlet layer of catlinite, also known as pipestone, a soft, sacred stone that has been quarried for hundreds of years by native peoples to craft ceremonial pipes. The rock here is unlike the surrounding Sioux quartzite. Formed in ancient riverbeds and compressed into clay-rich stone, pipestone is smooth, carvable, and deeply meaningful. Indigenous cultures from across the continent once journeyed here to quarry it by hand, respecting the site, the stories, and each other. Above the quarries, Winnewissa Falls tumbles gently over a ledge, framed by petroglyphs carved into weathered stone. The cliffs are quiet. The wind carries prayers, and the red stone below holds generations of memory. At Pipestone, geology isn't just physical, it's spiritual. A place where land and tradition are carved from the same rock, and where silence holds more meaning than speech. Just a few miles from Pipestone, tucked into Minnesota's far southwest, lies Touch the Sky Prairie, a rare remnant of native tallgrass prairie that rises and falls like slow waves beneath an endless sky. This is not restored land. This is original. The prairie here is dotted with glacial boulders and scattered granite outcrops, left behind by Ice Age forces and now softened by wind and wildflowers. Big blue stem, prairie smoke, lead plant, and more than 100 native species bloom across the hills in brilliant rotation. Sandhill cranes nest in hidden wetlands. Monarchs drift between milkweed. And narrow trails wind through a world that still feels untamed. Not because it is wild, but because it has never been broken. As the name suggests, the sky here feels closer, reflected in ponds, stretched across golden ridges and flickering in the grass. This isn't a place you visit. It's a place you step into and disappear into something older, quieter, and free. From glacial lakes to ancient cliffs, from underground rivers to prairie skies, Minnesota is not one landscape. It's many layered beneath one name. What looks still is moving. What seems flat is folded. And what we call up north or down south is far older than direction. It's elemental. Here, fire became rock, and rock became refuge. Ice carved valleys, and silence filled them. Rivers began here, not just to flow, but to tell stories. Through forest, through stone, through time. Whether beneath the surface or above the tree line, this is a place that has always been wild, even when no one was looking. This was not a tour of lakes. It was a search through memory, one written in granite, glacial drift, prairie root, and sacred stone. And it's still being written in every ripple, ridge, and breath of wind that moves across this land. If you found wonder where you least expected it, subscribe to Era Trails and explore the unseen corners of Earth, one forgotten place at a time. And if you know someone who thinks Minnesota ends at its lakes, share this with them. The journey has only just begun.